Hola, hola, and welcome to the Speaker Movement podcast. I am your host, Steph Wharton, a public speaker and coach for creatives who are looking to enter their speaker era in order to grow their brand and amplify their impact in sustainable ways. I've been receiving incredible feedback about these kind of behind the scenes sneak peeks or views into what it looks like to book public speaking gigs, to show up and go through the experience itself, and how I specifically use public speaking as a visibility strategy and a money-making one inside of my business. So I think we're going to be doing several more because why not? I'm all for transparency. I think this is such an untapped market, public speaking as a whole. It's this thing that people to a certain extent feel, I know I felt this too, that in order to be a public speaker, you almost have to be a celebrity. You have to be famous. You have to be really well known in your industry. And that puts a lot of pressure because at the end of the day, those are just the people that we're seeing in the media, especially when we look at pop culture, red carpet stages, like all those things, right? But in entrepreneurship, especially, it's a culture where any of us can start a business, right? Of course, it takes a certain level of skills. You want to learn some things, and it definitely requires a lot of like resilience and courage. But at the end of the day, almost anybody can do it. It's not like you require all the capital in the world, all the experience in the world, or celebrity status in order to do so. So the reason I'm saying this is because as entrepreneurs, you're already so courageous. You're already putting yourself out there and building something from scratch, which opens up the possibilities for you to do anything. And if public speaking is that thing you want to do, whether it's in the comfort of your own home and doing lots of podcast interviews or virtual trainings or in-person workshops and speaking on stages, whatever your vision of being a public speaker is, you already have the skills to do it. You already have the mindset to do it, right? Maybe there's a couple things to work on behind the scenes. Maybe there's a little bit of things you can learn in terms of strategy, but you already have the foundation, which is at the end of it, the courage, the ability to figure things out and to create whatever you want for your life and your business out of thin air. So with that, we're going to circle back to the opportunity that I wanted to share with you today and kind of peel back the curtain and show you behind the scenes. This is the first time that I booked a paid workshop. It was a virtual opportunity, so it was super easy in terms of like I don't have to get ready and actually experience the jitters of getting on a physical stage or being in a boardroom or whatever the kind of setting is for a workshop based on who you're working with. It was virtual. I was sitting at home. I got to just show up on Zoom, lead the workshop, have a lot of fun, and then go on my merry way to keep working or hang out or take a nap, whatever it is I did back in the day, because this was several years ago. But how I actually booked this gig, I think this is really important because a lot of the public speaking opportunities that I land come about in a similar way. It's not the exact same steps, but the essence, the actual strategy is the same. So we'll talk about that a little bit more in a second. But basically, how I booked this gig is this was towards the earlier stages of my career as an entrepreneur. I had already pivoted into coaching, leadership and visibility coaching specifically. And I remember I was still feeling a little bit lost because I had built a community to some extent full of designers up until then, because I started my business as a brand strategist and brand designer. So I had spent a year and a half plus building that community, making friends, having people that I could rely on I don't know, to vent whenever I was feeling frustrated with a client or to get advice from or to share advice with. And now I was pivoting into the coaching world. And sure, I knew some coaches that I had organically made friendships with as well, for sure. But I still felt a bit of a disconnect because now my entire following base were primarily designers. And here I was trying to coach people, coach whether it's designers or anybody else, on how to build a brand, get visible, right? Market yourself in very organic and collaborative ways. I was basically doing everything that I'm doing now, but the baby version, the transition version that has evolved so much in the last couple of years. So I was basically searching for friendship, for community. And one of the things that I happened to stumble on, I believe at the time this was on Facebook, it was a group of folks who were meeting up. I don't remember if it was weekly or bi-weekly, but they were meeting up and sharing their goals, sharing what they were working on, keeping each other accountable, checking in, sharing advice, and just basically like a very unstructured mastermind where it was more about the accountability and encouragement. So not so much coaching, but just being there for each other, right? Community. And I raised my hand immediately. I'm like, yep, I want to be a part of this. Everybody was in kind of a different specialty, but if I'm being honest, they were still in the design field. They just had experience in different ways, right? Whether it was like agency vibes or freelancing vibes or whatever that might be. So there was still diversity in different ways. And I started attending these calls, and it was honestly just really nice to peel back the curtains, kind of like I'm doing now, and talk about what it really looks like to build a business, how you're signing clients, what projects are you working on, whether it's design related, coaching related, what it feels like to create content and put yourself out there every single day. And we continued to meet up in this way for months. I think I ended up staying a part of that community for, I say community, it was like 4 of us. So like very intimate, right? I attended those calls and was part of that group for, let's say, about a year, maybe a bit more. But within the first couple of months after we had built solid relationships and that rapport, and people got to experience a sense of what I stood for, what I coached my clients on, because as we were showing up, these concerns, these challenges were coming up for some of the folks inside, and we're talking about showing up online and building a brand and different ways to create content, to be seen, etc. That I started to share a lot of advice around my own expertise, visibility, public speaking, collaborations, branding, little bits and pieces throughout, depending on the conversation. That in essence, what I was doing is not just building relationships in a very genuine, no strings attached way, but I was also starting to solidify my authority, if you will, my expertise. Like they literally started to know me for what I specialized in and what I coached my clients in and day out. So what ended up happening is one of my peers ended up reaching out on a sidebar, sent me a message, and they're like, Steph, I have this other friend group, other community that I'm a part of. They're all entrepreneurs. They actually really need help with this specific topic that you were talking about the other day. I can't remember if I was talking about it on the peer call or on my socials, like through my marketing, but they're like, that's something that they need. Would you be interested in doing a paid workshop? I'm like, yes. Like, first of all, this is literally what I talk about day in and day out. So I'm going to be talking about it anyway. And now you want to pay me to do this? Absolutely. It was such a big shift for me because I had already done public speaking gigs. I had spoken on a panel before. I'd done the in-person experiences. I'd done virtual guest trainings. I'd done podcast interviews. But up until now, every single speaking opportunity, every single collaboration was just that. A collaboration. It was free. It was unpaid. It was an opportunity to practice and to build my confidence and to network with people and to basically build my portfolio as a public speaker. But it was still unpaid. So the fact that somebody who now knew me as a human being, got to know me as a leader, as an expert in my industry as well, now connected those two and went, yes. Absolutely. Like I would pay you, my friends would pay you. Let's get us all together and let's have this workshop. So I said yes, obviously, and put together the workshop, asked a couple of questions, made sure that it was tailored to this specific community. And it was honestly just such a cool experience. It did lead to sales, which was awesome as well. But just the fact that somebody recognized that I'd be good at this felt like such a validating moment. And when I look at all the public speaking gigs that I've booked since then, some of them paid, some of them aren't paid, depending on the type of opportunity that it was and the capacity that I had. There's been instances where I've had to pitch myself, right? I've got to like do the research on who would I want to partner up with, what platforms do I want to speak on. I'd have to find whether they have an application, intake form, maybe send them a DM, an email, and literally just put myself out there. And it's a little bit scary, sure. But I'm like, if I want to do more of this, if I want to continue to get paid to speak, I might have to put myself out there. And I think regardless of where you are in your journey, unless you're literally receiving gigs like every single week nonstop, I think it's good to put yourself out there. And even if you are receiving invitations left, right, and center, and they're all paid and it's all incredible and you're booked out, Sometimes you want to grow your brand in a different direction, or you want to go like further, like dive deeper into one specific area within your brand, within your thought leadership and business. Or perhaps you want to challenge yourself with a different type of speaking opportunity. So all those, when you're so used to receiving one kind, like let's say, I don't know, you're deep in your public speaking journey and you're killing it booking keynotes left, right, and center, but you're dying, like you're itching to do an in-person workshop where you get to facilitate experiences and teach people on the spot and give feedback and allow them to take up space in different ways. And that sounds like your cup of tea, but nobody's inviting you to that, but you're such a famous public speaker. Well, then get out of your own way and go ahead and pitch yourself, right? So I think pitching gets to be part of the strategy, regardless of where you are at in your journey. But then on the other hand, there's going to be instances where the opportunities are going to come to you. And that's got a lot to do with building a brand as a speaker. It's a lot of what I coach my clients on inside of my coaching program. It's like, it's not enough to just pitch yourself and then stay quiet. If somebody, especially if you're pitching and they don't know who you are or they don't know you well enough, and now they receive your pitch and they go, okay, this sounds really good on paper, but I'm not quite sold yet. Well, how you show up, right? Your brand, your visibility, your content, your portfolio, whatever's online for folks to then consume and get to experience what it is like to have you speak at different events inside different communities, so then they can visualize what it would be like to have you come speak within their event, programs, and communities. That is going to be what makes such a big difference. So regardless of whether you pitch or not, building that brand online or even in person is going to make such a big difference when it comes to not just having to put yourself out there, but actually having those opportunities. People emailing you, being like, I want to pay you to speak at my next event because that topic, that thing that I saw, literally brilliant. Maybe a couple notes on how I want to tweak it for my community, but like, damn, that's literally what I've been looking for. So you're pitching, you're attracting, you've got all these different ways of booking opportunities. But the number one thing that I see both in my public speaking journey and that of my clients is that networking has such a big impact on the number of speaking opportunities that you book and the quality, like how aligned, how good they are for you and for your brand when you continue to grow, right? Like more reach, more revenue, like that's going to be so, so good in terms of how you want to grow your brand. And it's all about the networking. You don't even have to use the term networking. It's relationship building. It's making friendships, but it's about how you connect with humans on a real level, whether it's friends that you've made online, people that you meet at events in person, whether it's folks that you have worked with in the past, people that you've invited to speak or they've invited you to speak, and you continue to nurture those relationships in order to build the level of trust and also to be remembered specifically as a public speaker, because I think one of the things that ends up happening is you are known for so many different things, especially if you're an entrepreneur. You have a bit of your personal brand going on, like your humanity, what you're into and not into, etc. People get to know you just as a friend. Then people know you through your expertise and your offers. And now there's a speaker brand aspect. And sometimes if we're not vocal enough about it, if our speaker brand isn't visible, then they'll still remember you, but not as a speaker. Right? So it's all about building those relationships, pitching, and attracting opportunities through your brand that builds this ecosystem of you basically being able to continue to book speaker tours on repeat because you're always having opportunities coming at you in some way or another.